The U.S. treats Israeli pedophiles nicer than wounded Palestinian kids. Notes from the edge of the narrative matrix. Anti-War has a story out right now with the headline, Representative Green, U.S. should let Gaza children in for medical treatment and prosecute Israeli child predators. It's a headline that says so much about what's going on in the world in just a few words. Is the U.S. really not letting Gaza children in for medical treatment? Is the U.S. really failing to prosecute Israelis who prey on children? Why are these things necessary to say? And why is it being left to Marjorie Taylor Greene to say them? What's crazy is that these are entirely true and legitimate grievances, as Anti-War's Dave DeCamp explains. Quote, the Georgia representative was referring to a recent State Department decision to block visas for Palestinians from Gaza in response to outrage from pro-Trump activist Laura Loomer over wounded Palestinian children arriving for medical treatment, and the case of Tom Alexandrovich, a senior Israeli cyber official who was arrested in a sting operation in Nevada for attempting to lure a child for sexual purposes, but was allowed to go back to Israel. End quote. I mean, damn. Things are so fucked up that the only way to get wounded Palestinian children in and out of the United States for medical treatment these days would be to disguise them as Israeli pedophiles. Israel apologists are still trying to make the "we're not starving children, we're starving sick children" line work. Barry Weiss's media outlet, The Free Press, has a new genocide apologia article out, noting that 12 of the emaciated children we've seen in photos distributed by the mainstream press have had pre-existing conditions like cystic fibrosis, rickets, or other serious ailments. This argument is exactly the same as starting a fire in a crowded building and then claiming you can't be guilty of murder by arson because many of the people who died in the fire were handicapped and elderly individuals who couldn't escape quickly enough. Everyone knows that the people who suffer first and worst in a famine are small children, the elderly, and the sick. As others have pointed out, it really shows how desperate the Israel spinmeisters are getting that they would cite rickets as a pre-existing condition in their argument to dismiss concerns about starvation in Gaza, given that rickets is a condition caused by malnutrition. Israel, we have to kill all the journalists in Gaza because they're Hamas. Western journalists, okay, so let us in, so at least someone's there to report on what's happening in Gaza. Israel, we can't. It's not safe for you. Western journalists, why not? Israel, because then you'd be Hamas. Saw a tweet from former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett complaining that Europe is becoming Islamized, fear-mongering about the number of Muslims who now live in some of Europe's major cities. Israelis are something else, man. They don't want Muslims to live in the Middle East. They don't want Muslims to live in Europe. Kind of seems like they just don't want Muslims to live. The New York Post has an article out with the headline, Queen's Bodega named Gaza Deli and Grill ignites fear among Jewish New Yorkers, including October 7th survivor saying, I'm still not safe. It's just as ridiculous as it sounds. There's a bodega in New York called Gaza Deli and Grill, and Jewish locals are saying it makes them feel unsafe. This happens as an active genocide continues in Gaza, with Israel calling upon 60,000 IDF reservists in preparation for the planned ethnic cleansing of 1 million civilians from Gaza City. Whenever you see the Western press centering the feelings of Western Jews with extreme aggression, it's a safe bet that Israel has something especially ugly in the works. The plan has always been to pace us from, it's a complicated conflict and Hamas attacked on October 7th, and gosh, you sure are obsessed with Jews, to, well, it's too late to do anything about it now, to, oh, come on, Gaza was so long ago and there's nothing we can do to change the past. It really seems to have taken the empire by surprise that the public has not played along with this. They really expected us to forget about Gaza within the first few weeks and let it fade into the background. The fact that the outcry has only gotten louder says encouraging things about ordinary members of the public and about the future of the human species.